Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 6th grade science. I'm Mr. Tanner, and today we're going to be learning about what is science, or what is the purpose of science, also known as the scientific method. We'll start with a definition. Science is a method or a series of steps. And these series of steps allow us to answer questions based on observations that we have made. The first step in the scientific method is to question. And we ask this question based on some observation that we have made. For example, if I've ever noticed that there's different types of paper airplanes, I could ask, will a paper airplane with wide wings or narrow wings fly further? The second step is to plan or design. Plan or design. And what we're going to be designing is an experiment that would allow us to test our question or answer the question. So in this case, with the paper airplane, I might build two different airplanes. One would have a really wide set of wings, and the other would have a very narrow set of wings. I might then throw both airplanes in the exact same way and measure which one flies the farthest. After you've designed an experiment, you need to predict what the outcome of that experiment will be. And in science vocabulary, that prediction is called a hypothesis. So for step 3, you write a hypothesis where you predict what you think will happen with that experiment, what you think will be the answer. So in this case, you would either think that the airplane with wide wings would fly further, or you might think that the airplane with narrow wings would fly further. But either way, you are predicting one outcome. You have to make a choice. After you have formed your hypothesis, you can actually test that hypothesis by doing the experiment. So you do your experiment. And it's really important to remember when we're doing science, you are trying to prove your hypothesis wrong. This may sound backwards from what you might think, but you are trying to show that your hypothesis is incorrect, because if you can't show that it's incorrect, that's much more powerful than manipulating or trying to show your hypothesis is correct. So in science, you are trying to prove your hypothesis wrong. Step 5 really happens while you are doing the experiment, but you need to record and observe everything that is happening while you are doing your experiment. So you would record any data and observations from your experiment. And in the case of the paper airplanes, my data is going to be how far the airplanes fly. So maybe they fly 5 meters or 10 meters or 20 meters, but that's my data. My observations aren't usually going to be numbers. They're going to be more like, what did the airplanes look like while they were flying? Were they flying straight? Did they turn? Did they rise into the air? Did they spiral? Anything that happened that might explain why the results are what they are. Finally, you need to analyze and conclude the results from your experiment. So you would start by analyzing your data. You analyze your data from your experiment. And then you would write a conclusion. And it's really important to use data to support your conclusion. So I wouldn't just say that the narrow-winged or the wide-winged airplane flew further. I would use the numbers for how far they flew and describe the observations for why they flew further. So it's not enough to just write a one sentence, this airplane went further. You need to elaborate on that and say, this is how far each one flew. These are the observations about why they went further. So your conclusion needs to be 3 to 5 sentences typically for a 6th grade conclusion. And this is the scientific method. So it's again just a series of steps where step 1, you ask a question about the natural world. Step 2, you design a test that would allow you to test that. Step 3, you write your hypothesis. Step 4, you actually test your experiment. Step 5, you record and observe while your experiment is happening. Record and observe, sorry, that's sloppy. And then 6, you analyze and conclude. And if you follow these steps through carefully, you can be much more confident that your results are what the actual truth would be. Well, that's it for the notes on the scientific method. If you have any questions, please come ask. But right now, you're ready to start task 2.